Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Lunala. Guys, I am really excited about this video because after running the damage calculations and looking at the movesets, Lunala is actually pretty good. So all you Moon fans out there get to feel pretty happy about this one. So let's go and check out the Psychic Ghost typing. This is a very interesting typing because we have two weaknesses. So two weaknesses isn't bad except when they're both 4 times super effective. So it's kind of like a weakness in the truest sense of the idea that you get hit by Ghost, you're done. You get hit by Dark, you're done. However, we do pick up 2 immunities as well and 2 resistances on that Poison and the Psychic. So, interestingly balanced, and at least Ghost and Dark aren't incredibly common, and I mean, you can actually play around those really well. Ghost, you bring in a normal type Pokemon if you feel that Ghost hit coming, and Dark can be easily resisted and then dealt with Fairy type Pokemon. Looking at the typing offensively, it doesn't have too much really going for it. That Dark type Pokemon will be a big threat to us, so when running the Lunala, make sure you do have some really powerful Fairies backing you up. But on that, we do hit Fighting and Poison super effective with our Psychic, and then Ghost will hit Ghost and Psychic as well. So I mean, it does kind of play off each other really well. We just have to worry about the Dark types, and then Normal will only be able to hit neutrally effective. So let's go and check out the stats for Lunala. So it's a legendary Pokemon. Expect big legendary stats. However, they're kind of all over the place. Like a 113 attack doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's still going to be fairly usable. And then we just have a really high amount of hit points. So 137 on the hit points, 137 on the attack, and then our defense, that's about an average-ish defense, and then pretty good on the special defense as well, but 97 speed. So the weird thing about legendary Pokemon is that they don't really have crazy sweeping speed stats, because when you start throwing all of these really high like base stat totals into a sweeping Pokemon, things get pretty dangerous pretty quickly. So Lunala is actually at the upper end of sweepers for legendaries, so it's a decent amount of speed, and we can use that to our advantage in some way. Now it's time to go to Cerebi and check out Lunala. So the ability is Shadow Shield, new exclusive ability on the Lunala, except reduces the amount of damage taken while it has full hit points. So think multi-scale. That's actually going to be really good to consider for the Lunala, because that first hit is actually going to be survivable even if it's a super effective hit. Think Dragonite, think all of these cool setup options that we can have for the Lunala, or just reliability on that damage. So we get really tanky right there. And then we have the MoonGeist Beam. I don't think much of it matters. Like, okay, it can be used on an opponent regardless of its ability. It's like a built-in mold breaker, so I guess if the Pokemon is sturdy and you're one-shotting it, that is something that you can use to your advantage. But I'm just more interested in the 100 base power of this move, because that's going to get pretty big. 137 special attack with a 100 base power move that's getting Stab. That's going to be very powerful, and it has 100% accuracy. We only get 5 PP on it, but that's going to be our main go-to bread and butter move right there. On that, we get Cosmic Power. So Lunala is interesting because it gets all kinds of weird setup options that I can play. It gets like Cosmic Power and Roost as well. We also have Moonlight. We have a lot of ways for playing that Sustain, so that could be something to consider. We have Hypnosis if you want to play that way. I mean, we have all kinds of fun stuff. The Magic Code, and then we go into Psychic coverage. We have Moonblast for the Fairy coverage. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go and play the Lunala. Do you want to run the Calm Mind? Boost your special defense even higher and then add it to your damage like that. We get the Ice coverage as well. So I guess if you think like Sun, Fire, kind of stuff like that, the Moon is going to be cold because darkness and space is super cold and stuff, so maybe the Ice Beam makes sense that way. Either way, we get Ice Beam on Lunala. That's pretty awesome right there. And then we have all kinds of other coverage options. We get the Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, that doesn't really matter, the Psyshock, Will-O-Wisp. So as a ghost type Pokemon, we kind of get to pick up the Will-O-Wisp as well, potential to burn the opponent right there, Psych Up, and then just a lot of cool stuff on the Z move. So very wide variety of stuff that Lunala can use. So now let's go take all that, figure something out in Pokemon Showdown for the Lunala. So we can just kind of look at basic hard offense, like a 137 special attacking Pokemon with choice specs using a 100 base power move is going to be devastating. And there's a couple of different ways you can take this. You can go for the 97 base speed, because one thing you have to be mindful of pretty much the whole time you're running a legendary Pokemon is that other legendary Pokemon are allowed, which means their lower speed. Something like the Kyogre will be taken into consideration. So yeah, Kyogre, Groudon, these Pokemon only have 90 on the base speed, so a timid Lunala will be able to outspeed that and at least threaten the Kyogre more than the Kyogre is threatening the Lunala, even though Kyogre has like crazier stat distribution. Like that's where the 113 on the attack is a little heartbreaking. I mean, could take in this, give it 100 on the attack, and then put more into the defense or something. But either way, we can do that, and then we can see some kind of sample moveset right here. You know, we got MoonGeist Beam, we have Ice Beam, Psyshock, Moonblast. We just kind of hit everything really well. I actually think the Ice Beam works out better than expected, because MoonGeist Beam is going to be your main form of stab. But when you think about it, a lot of flying type Pokemon have that normal tagged in with them. You know, we just have normal flying Pokemon. The Ice Beam will hit them super effective. Also, just other flying type Pokemon, we get to hit them pretty well. So we get a little bit of synergy right there. Psyshock hitting that Pokemon for physical damage if they have a lot of special tanks. You know, Psyshock is really good against Pokemon like Blissey and Chansey. Then the Moonblast. Dragon killing, high damage, Fairy is just really good. It threatens dark type Pokemon. So if you can outspeed that dark type Pokemon, not eat a sucker punch, boom, the Moonblast will go and nuke them for you. So all this coverage is going to be pretty solid right here. Now there is one thing you could also run, and that is the Focus Blast. But that Focus Miss is up to you, because yes, you're going to be able to hit dark type super effective, you're going to be able to hit normal type super effective, but do you want to take that accuracy risk, or do you want to run the lower power, not super effective against normal, but more reliable on the Moonblast? The choice is yours, and that's pretty much how we're going to play it out. Thoughts, you can run Timid Nature if you want to keep on that speed. If not, Modest does just fine. Like, this is going to make it to where you can outspeed other non-invested things like Modest, Kyogre, if it has choice specs, you get to outspeed them, get some damage out quicker, or just random Pokemon. Some Pokemon might have like speed creep investment, some might be going for some things, or you just outspeed all the tanks and do insane amounts of damage to them, because they have Modest Nature with that choice specs, and you are just shredding through fools all day long. So let's go and see what other things Lunala can do. So fun stuff. We're going to talk about this later in the video when we get into damage calculations, but if you want to invest a tank Lunala, you need to max out your defensive investment, because what it's going to do is give you more effective defenses. That, as you can see right here, we go from 214 to 277. That's going to be a much bigger change than 415 to the 478. So if the stat has a higher number, like a much higher number, that's better to invest in the smaller stat, because your gain percentage wise is going to be larger, which means more stats and more tankiness for the Lunala. And then that means if you're going to be running tankiness, then you can run the Roost next to it, and then damaging moves on a Life Orb. Or this is where you could also throw in the Cosmic Power. That, alright, so now we have Cosmic Power Roost, we're really tanky, Psyshock MoonGeist Beam for the dual stab, or that's where you could also just have the Moonblast. Fairy type moves just are so consistent against a lot of things, and also we're having the Cosmic Power, then that's maybe where we could get rid of the Life Orb and then try to go and throw in something like a Leftovers. Just give us a little bit of that extra health, and then that will bring us back up. Also, a really nice thing about Roost is that, okay, say you get outsped, you take 50%. You Roost back up to full. Hey, Shadow Shield activates again. So, I mean, you can also do like Rest, Sleep Talk with the Lunala. You know, just take the hit, Rest, Sleep Talk, do some damage and stuff like that. I just like the Cosmic Power because that's going to be a lot of stats and a lot of tankiness over time. Only problem with this is that, yeah, you have like the Modest Nature and high investment stuff, but it means if they're running Calm Mind, then that means it might get too tanky for you to do reliable damage to, and if they're just running like a filthy heavy special defense tank, then you can get like outpaced since you're not getting any extra damage off the Life Orb. If they have heavy sustain, then that could be a bit of a problem. Actually, I don't have any Toxapex damage calculations lined up, but it'd probably be something like Toxapex outstalls you through the Roost, you get poisoned or something, and then your Cosmic Power doesn't matter as much. So there's going to be some weird situations with this, but if you want overall effective tankiness, the Cosmic Power works. But if you want to go for damage boosting, then you can go and run the Calm Mind. Problem is, like, it would be super cool if we could go like Calm Mind, Will-O-Wisp, but that's effectively doing the same thing as Cosmic Power, except it's giving us extra damage. And then MoonGeist Beam, well, that doesn't work because that's a normal type Pokemon coming in and then completely walling us out. So what we'd have to do in that situation is run something more reliable like the Moonblast. Moonblast hits all Pokemon. Some things will resist it, but say if you're at +6 Calm Mind, or you know, +4 even, then the Moonblast doesn't even matter. So you could run something like this, and then that's where you could go with Leftovers or the Citrus Berry, and for some reason it's not updating the item. So yeah, Leftovers will give you that. Citrus Berry also buys you that extra turn, and then you just want to Roost back up. So yeah, Calm Mind once or twice, Will-O-Wisp the opponent, and now you can Roost back, get your Shadow Shield. They're doing reduced damage on top of reduced damage, and this could be the ultimate tanking set right here. The only thing you really have to worry about, as I mentioned before, is going to be something like the Toxic, and maybe, potentially, you could even get away with, like, Chesto Resto. There's a lot of really weird things that you can do on this Lunala set. And I think that that's kind of something to bring up right there. The only drawback to rest in this situation is like, yeah, you can get outsped, use roost, and then that's going to pull your stats back up. And because of that, now the next hit's not going to matter. Well, if you're resting, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that turn. You're asleep, then your Shadow Shield gets popped, and then you're still asleep. So that could be a little bit of a problem for the Lunala right there. But overall, still looking really solid on what you can do with all these stats and stuff like that. Some other things to know about Lunala, you can just run like Calm Mind, Timid, you know, you outspeed the opponent, you get the free Calm Mind, then you start nuking them from there. With that set, you can run something like the Leftovers, just get a little bit of that extra tankiness against special attacking Pokemon, and if you're setting up, you know, you get some health back, and that just feels good overall, because you don't need any more damage boosting on top of that, because Calm Mind puts you at 1.5 times special attack. If you can manage 2 Calm Minds, then you're pretty much set for the rest of the game. That can be pretty good. Calm Mind Roost, as we've talked about, only leaves you with 2 options, or you can go Calm Mind 3 attacks, maybe a Citrus Berry in that situation. So those are things to consider on the Lunala. Also, Choice Scarf as an option, Modest Choice Scarf. This is pretty much going to flip it around because we already have enough damage to reliably 2-hit KO a lot of Pokemon, and the Shadow Shield makes us very stupidly tanky as well. So that means we outspeed, we do half their health, they hit us, and then, alright, we don't take a lot of on that first hit, and then we go and KO them. Next Pokemon comes in, we outspeed, do damage, they don't finish us off, we KO them, and then we just kind of get to go 2+ whatever on the Choice Scarf. Now, we'll lock us into moves. If we're using MoonGeist Beam, they can bring in a normal type Pokemon and be a problem for us, but overall, this is like very reliable, quick, tanky damage at the same time. So Lunala is going to be very successful right there. And then, this is the interesting one. This is super tech-heavy shenanigans, incorporating like everything we've ever learned about Pokemon into the set. So Psychium Z, Status Hypnosis. So Z-Move Hypnosis actually make it to where you gain speed. You get a +1 speed boost on that Hypnosis usage. So that's going to be interesting because it's like a free Choice Scarf and the opponent is asleep. So now you can also use this a lot to your advantage. Are you going to go Calm Mind, 2 offensive moves? You already have your damage, so pretty much, yeah. You go Calm Mind, Modest Nature, you outspeed everything, you one-shot everything. They just need to make sure the coverage is right. That's why I just feel the Moonblast MoonGeist Beam is very strong together, and because like, and that's the great thing about the Shadow Shield. The Shadow Shield gives us that opportunity to make sure this setup is reliable. You know, we get that Hypnosis in there, they're going to be asleep, we get the Calm Mind, we could, hell, even go for like 2 Calm Minds, just who cares, we're outspeeding them now, and then we make sure we KO every Pokemon in our way, and then the Shadow Shield keeps us up, we still have a lot of effective tankiness, and that's why I want to go and show this defensive investment right here. So all of this is very precise. At level 50, with +1 on your speed, this will outspeed 135 base speed Pokemon. So that means, yeah, like if we're just fully investing like this, now we're only getting to like other Scarf Pokemon territory. But Modest on that 97 speed, I'm actually wondering what kind of ranges that's going to give us to. So I want to go and pull up a Pokemon that has like... Now, if you do go for the full speed investment, there are some cases against like some scarfing Pokemon or some boosting Pokemon, like the Dragonite. So say we have like, well, not Timid, but whatever, Jolly Dragonite that's trying to boost through Dragon Dance, or Scarf Pokemon at 80 base speed with a beneficial speed nature, we're still going to be able to outspeed them after our +1 speed. So if you find that comes in handy, that's going to be pretty good. But if you just want to outspeed normal Pokemon, non-scarfed, regular old, just flat base speed Pokemon, then that's where you want to go for that extra investment. And then that means we just get free points in our defenses, so we get extra tankiness like that. Now, if you want to go split on defenses, you can go for the hit point investment, because alright, it's going to give you a little bit more out of that special defense, it's going to give you a little bit more out of the defense, but if you want to go balanced and you want to get more specific defenses, then 92 in defense, and yeah, that's just going to help out your tankiness a little more. You might survive that extra hit, that you might be able to reduce that damage, and then you're Calm Minding. Yeah, you're Calm Minding anyways. So putting the investment into defense is going to feel a lot better for the Lunala, and then you're just really tanky, and then you're outspeeding everything, and then you're doing enough damage. And now let's go and check out some damage calculations. So this has been a pretty long video, and that's because it's just so fun to go and talk about the Lunala. So I'm also trying to find like the effective ranges of this Pokemon as well. So I brought out something like Ace Valley, because it runs like the Adamant nature, but still max speed, but still lots of damage, and it tries its best, but it is tankier than our MoonGeist Beam. So Modest Choice specs will not KO. So we're starting to find the end ranges right there, and more likely you're going to find something like the Timid Choice specs on the Lunala. However, say if we have like an 85 hit point, 85 special defense Pokemon, that's going to be where we start finding those KO ranges fairly reliably, more like 85, 80, and then that is going to be pretty solid right there. Now, this is where we do get into a little bit of a mess because, yeah, if Pokemon is slower than 97 base speed, it's probably going to have some extra tankiness. It's going to be slower in itself, so those stats are going elsewhere. It's going to have a higher amount of attack or something like that. So it's more showing that Lunala is good for those 2-hit KOs, or if we can get that extra boosting in there some other way, then we're going to need to play around that as well, which is why the tank set, I feel, is superior, because we're taking less damage, and then we're just going to be doing 2-hit KOs to a lot of Pokemon in return. Okay, so let's say we have 252 hit point investment right here, and we have mix. So we have a Draco Meteor and an Earthquake. That way we're showing like the fair representation of everything whenever we're starting to break down our defenses and whatnot. So we have 229 plus the 12.7. That is going to give us a 35.6. So keep that number in your head as we go, and we just shift that all the way over into the defense. So by adding that up together, it's going to be a 20.2 and a 14.6. So that is going to be 34.8. So we're actually gaining a slight amount. You know, we're taking 1% less of our hit points in damage. But also, as you can see, the Earthquake drops off by about 2%. We do gain slightly more on the Draco Meteor, but really it doesn't matter because the stats are just all over the place anyways. So that's kind of the trade-off that we're looking for right here. By putting it into defenses, by maybe even boosting on our special defense instead, or finding something like that, we're getting more effective tankiness just by spreading the numbers around properly and then trying to achieve a balance between Lunala's stats. So just kind of want to show that against a pretty decent mixed Pokemon right here. So next up, let's go and keep going into this. So MoonGeist Beam, timid choice specs against a Kyogre. So let's just say we're going like to outspeed Kyogre right here with that timid nature. Yeah, we just two-shot it with choice specs. That's kind of why I'm showing like, okay, this is a workable speed right here. That as long as we're outspeeding other legendary Pokemon, or at least we're tanking up other legendary Pokemon, it's going to be pretty good. And then we have Pokemon like the Dialga. So again, 90 base speed on this Pokemon right here. What's the Giratina at? I don't quite remember. So Giratina's origin form, that's a 90 base speed Pokemon as well. And even with that, we're going to be able to one-shot it through full hit point investment. And I'm guessing that the normal Giratina super tank Meganess, yeah, we can still do pretty well against that. But the Shadow Force is going to be an insane amount of damage, even with our Shadow Shield. So things to consider right there, even though it's really tanky. However, here's what we do. We outspeed, we use MoonGeist Beam, it goes for Shadow Force, and then we switch into a normal type move, and then Lunala is safe while doing insane damage to the Giratina, which is now pretty weakened right there. So a lot of really interesting matchups. I was looking at the Xerneas. So let's go flip it around on a Pokemon like the Xerneas, because Xerneas has slightly less tankiness than us, you know, less hit points, even though it's still really high hit points and pretty good on that special defense. Well, say we're running that Choice Scarf Modest, yeah, we just outspeed and two-shot Xerneas on our MoonGeist Beam. So showing a lot of the variance and damages that we can find with our Lunala right here, and that's going to be pretty solid. So taking it to the next level, you know, if that's Modest and say we have +2 on the Calm Mind, they're doing even less damage, and then we're finding one-hit KOs just like that. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, taking a really good, awesome look at the Lunala. I mean, yeah, the Hypnosis set. So you go into Xerneas, you Z Hypnosis, Calm Mind, one-shot everything. GG right there. So guys, enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.